welcome to another episode of that Grief Relief podcast. It's season 2, although I do have the audacity to call it season 2 because I've released one episode in season 2, and that was in September 2021. So this is the first Grief Relief podcast I've recorded in over 2 years. And before I introduce my guest, the reason for that is because I started working at Expo and moved into TV and all of that, which sounds wonderful. But obviously the subject that I have for the podcast, I can't just record these podcasts and just smash them out and think nothing of it. Like, they all deserve their own time and their space because each person has taken the time to share their story with me. So I then felt I couldn't give them enough time and justice, and that's not for me. So then the reason this is being recorded is because my guest on this podcast has the most crazy story, and he is more than willing to talk about it to me and for us. So right, let's jump into it. My guest this week / year is James McKinnon. James, you are mutual friends. So you are my best friend's ex-husband's best friend.
Boom.
There you go. James and I have been bridesmaids and groomsmen together, and you can decide who was who. James, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. And I'm going to ask you the question that I'm sure you hate answering, but how are you?
I'm really good. I'm really pleased to be doing this. I think it's funny you say it's been a while, and having listened to the podcasts, I'm a bit of a weird one. We didn't fit the mold. So it's a great opportunity to chat about death because we don't do it enough. I'm really pleased.
Yeah, we don't do it enough. And I think the reason why yours is so interesting is because, if I may be so bold, we're talking about your death.
Absolutely.
And the reason why the podcast has come about is because our mutual friend Sarah messaged me, 3-4 weeks ago, and said, and I knew you were poorly, which is such a British way of explaining what's happening.
Bit under the weather.
Yeah, a bit under the weather. And said, "Oh, Jim had his funeral the other week," and I'm like, "But Jim's not dead." She was like, "No." So let's kick off with that, Jim. If you don't mind me calling you Jim.
Call me whatever. Call me Cancer Captain, whatever you want to go with.
What's the story, man? Like, what's going on?
Well, so from the beginning, 2 years ago-ish, let's get straight into the poo chat. Bowel cancer. So it was, I had really bad stomach pains after eating. I thought to myself, too many kebabs, too many beers. Oh my goodness, I've got something terrible like IBS. But, gave it a couple of months and was like, all right, okay, I'm going to go to the doctors and go and have a look and see what's going on with that one. Then I saw blood in my poo. And then I went straight to the doctors and they said, put me on a screening list quite quickly. And they said, oh, yeah, you have a really big tumor in your bowel. How long have you had symptoms of it? I've been feeling sick after eating for a couple of months. Like, no, this has been here a long, long time. So in that respect, already a bit of an answer card that I didn't have any symptoms. So we'll open with check your poo. My advice to everybody, but any change in your bowel habits, anything at all, feeling sick, lethargic, losing weight when you don't expect to, all that kind of stuff, just go and get it looked at. Is my opinion on that.
And in terms of not even just blood in it?
No, that was it. No blood, just pretty normal turds. Just, it was, like I say, just really bad stomach cramps after eating. Just thinking, I've eaten too much, I've become lactose intolerant, maybe it's gluten. And you dismiss these things because you think, well, I'm 40 now. So yeah, that was that. And then, as I say, as soon as there's blood in the poo, that's the thing that was in my mind. Like, oh, you have to go to a doctor and get blood in your poo. Didn't know about the other ones. So that's a little bit of kind of advice. Any change to your eating kind of digestive habits is always worth having a look at. But that was 2 years ago. And they said, okay, but don't worry. It's just one tumor. We're going to cut it out. So we're going to do some chemotherapy first. So I had chemotherapy for about 6 or 7 months to try and reduce the size of the tumor to make it easier to snip out. So I went up to Guy's and St Thomas's. The tumor was in a really annoying place. It was sat on my ureter, which is the pipe that leads from your pee-pee to your bladder. So it wasn't cancer of that area. Just the tumor was really big and it was sitting on that. So very exciting operation. They kind of took out bits of colon. Then they had to remove the ureter, which meant that they had to take my bladder and stretch it into a tube and attach it back on. Anyway, lots of fun pack things, but still relatively successful. Then I went and got sepsis and tried to do an awful lot of dying.
And what is sepsis for those that don't know?
So sepsis is basically a infection of your blood, and your entire body has an infection, and it's not like kind of when you get a cut. Someone described it to me as an early onset of gangrene, which is incorrect, but it's where sepsis is everything it's in your whole body. I mean, it's worth Googling, because all I know is that it's the one where you feel like you're going to die. People say quite often it's in terms of, people know it's bad because, you know, it's so painful and it's so terrifying. You're like, this is really, really bad. So yeah, that's what happened to me. I was
and that's how you felt.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like, oh my God, this is too much. This pain, I was like, I had sweaty forearms, you know, and I was shivering, like shaking with cold, but my hands were sweating. It was like, okay, this isn't ideal. Went up to hospital, they're like, crikey, you should spend some time in hospital because you are poorly. So anyway, that was the complication of the operation. But that tends to be the case because obviously when you're inside somebody and you're, you know, throwing turds around inside your abdomen, there's a chance that some of those nasty little bacteria can get involved.
Right.
And it got into the whole bloodstream, and it was all very dramatic. But so I was supposed to be in hospital for, I think it was 6 or 7 days, and I ended up in for about 3 months, which it's quite a weight loss routine. Lost 25% of my body weight. Luckily, I was carrying enough. Thanks for noticing. And yes, so I lost loads of weight. Good. Another great thing about being in hospital for a long time is that you don't use your feet, so all your dead skin falls off. And you have these wonderful kind of foot model feet. I was like, look at these beautiful creatures. I haven't got a callus in sight. No, so, you know, bonuses. There's bonuses.
You can make money off that, you know.
I know. I just should have took some pics because they were glorious. I mean, they're all back now. I've been walking like, these hideous old trotters. They're back. Yeah. So anyway, so I got out of hospital. Like, fantastic. We got out with cancer, huzzah. Townspeople rejoiced, and they said, well, we're going to give you some more chemo, just because if there's any lingering cells and whatever, you know, that will really zap that up. So okay, that's absolutely fine. And then they said, okay, well, and then had a scan about 2 months after I came out of hospital. And that's when they said, oh dear, yeah, it's spread. And that's the thing. So I was at stage 3 cancer, which is, you know, we're okay if we can get it. 50-50 survival rate, roughly. You know, if you're at stage 3, 50-50. When it spreads, certainly with bowel cancer, this isn't the same with all cancers. With bowel cancer, stage 4 is like sayonara. You know, there's not really much they can do. So mine is actually spread to my peritoneum, which is the bag that your intestines and your stomach, and it's like a thing, and it goes around your whole innards. So it's in there, and it's in loads of different places. So they're like, soz, there's nothing we can do. We can't operate on that because it's too much. It's everywhere. And there's also another one in your bowel as well has come back that we weren't expecting. So that's when you get that news. And I suppose this is when we come onto the focus of today's chat. That's literally when you start properly grieving and you go, oh, okay, I'm going to die. First question, how long? They told me 18 months. So that was coming up to about a year ago, actually. So they said you've got about 18 months to live. But we're going to put you on some very aggressive chemotherapy, and we can't cure it, but we can try and slow it down. Previously, the chemotherapy didn't do very much. It kind of made a slight dent. But we're going to try this different one. It's more aggressive. And so yeah, that's when you begin to come to terms with dying, really. So I'm 42.
Yeah, you're a year in to your 18 months lifespan that they gave you.
Exactly, yeah. And we're looking promising. So I was not expecting to see this coming Christmas. So we are now in March 2024. I think I will probably, almost definitely, the way things are looking, I'll be okay for Christmas this year. So Christmas 24, I don't think I'm going to be pegging it just yet because the chemotherapy is slowing things down.
Good.
I had a set of scans relatively recently, and they said it's only grown in one place, which is the best news I've ever had. And then I had another one recently that said the blood's looking okay. It's relatively under control. There's a few bits sneaking up here and there. But then, to go off on a tangent with chemotherapy is hard. So I don't have chemotherapy as often as I should, and I'm doing this balance now, which is you go, okay, if I have chemotherapy every week, then it means I feel terrible all the time, and I can't live my life, and I have finite time. So if there's an event, so we've got Easter coming up. I should be feeling ill during the Easter weekend. I'm not doing that I'm cancelling chemo because I want to go and have a great time with my pals, go down the pub, go to horse racing, whatever that may be that's going on. Same thing with Christmas. You're like, no, I've got a big Christmas. I'm having no chemo at all in December. Some people are like, well, why would you do that? That means you're deliberately cutting short your very finite amount of time. But I need to enjoy the time that I have. So it's that trade-off. So, potentially I could live longer, but it's about the quality of time, and that's kind of where we are with chemotherapy. And so today I was in hospital yesterday with some chemotherapy, so I'm just on my downward spiral. But Katie's, you've just taken me out of bed just to chat to you and make me all chirpy and happy.
Well, God, I mean, I'm grateful for it, because that was the conversation I was thinking, because when you said you had, I mean, Jim literally said to me, I said, oh, when are you free? Which is a bizarre thing to ask someone that's dying. Like, when are you free? And then, and you're like, well, I've got chemo on Monday, so any day after that. And obviously in my mind, I think of chemo, yes, as being this horrific, horrendous thing. So what is the spiral then? Because obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube now, like, you look amazing, but then what? No, you stop. But what will happen? Will you deteriorate energy wise through the week, or?
Yeah, so I have intravenous chemotherapy, which is, so that goes into my chest port, which I'll show you in a minute. Actually, it's quite exciting. Talk
Sexy.
About that. Medical stuff. So I have that. So yesterday I was in there for about 5 hours, and they just slowly drip the poison into you over that time, and you slowly feel more and more sick because it's poison, and your body's going, hang on a minute, trying to be murdered here. So you get through that, and then last night it's like, oh my goodness, that was tough. And then what you have, well, what I have, my particular chemo, everything's different. Every cancer is different. And that's kind of what's great about cancer treatment. It's relatively tailored. Is that I have a little pump attached to me, and it delivers it over the next 3 days. So it continually poisons me until Wednesday. And so by Wednesday, I am ruined. So I'm over the sickness from yesterday with all the kind of quite intensive getting in me. And then the slow release poison goes in. So I'll show you how it's going in right now.
My goodness, whoop. Yes. Okay.
So this is called a chest fall. Oh, can you see? So what it is it's a device that lives underneath my skin, just in my chest, and it's attached, and it goes into my jugular up here, and it delivers the poison, the chemotherapy, into my bloodstream slowly. There's some people that you can have it in your arm, but that one is a bit of a faff. So mine lives under the skin. So instead of trying to find a vein, also my previous chemotherapy cooks on my veins, so my veins stopped working, so I can't get a cannula, and the needle that you get when you're in hospital.
Yeah.
My veins were rubbish. So instead I had this, and it's really nice. It lives under your skin, doesn't do anything most of the time, apart from when you put this magical gripper rod inside. And it's not as painful as being cannulated. So when you have a blood test or anything, that's and also they can move around and wiggle. This is really strapped on. It's called a gripper, and like spikes in it. Don't worry, it's fine.
And how often is that changed?
So the actual port, the chest port, is a porta cap, it's called. It lives under the skin permanently. So that's it. It's in there until I'm dead. They can last up to 10 years allegedly. I'd be lucky. But yeah, so it lives under the skin. And it doesn't need any maintenance. Sometimes it could get blocked, but then they can flush it with saline and things. So it's a really stress-free way of kind of delivering regular things. Hemophiliacs have it a lot. People who need a lot of blood transfusions, people like that will have one, just because it's easier than trying to find a vein all the time. And as I say, there's another one called a PICC line, which goes in your arm, and you have to keep it dry, and it's a general faff. So that's another thing I learned.
Do you choose it, or do they recommend what's going to be best for you and your lifestyle, or?
Exactly that. Yeah, they chat, and talk about what I wanted to do. I said, well, I'm not rolling over and dying, so I need one that I can be as active as possible. And I said, well, it's an invasive procedure. You literally have to lay there in front of the surgeon. It's a local anaesthetic, but you lay there with your neck exposed as if Dracula's coming, and they cut your neck open and they cut your chest open. I'm making it sound dramatic because it's me. It's no more than an inch kind of scar.
It is pretty dramatic, but you are allowed to make it dramatic.
It felt a bit like you kind of offer your jugular, and the surgeon comes in with his scalpel. Didn't hurt at all, but at the time you're like, cripes, this is quite exciting. But so it's because it's invasive. They tend to, if you're quite a bit older, they might do it. Risk of infection, all those things. My one was very simple, just went straight in, and I went on holiday to Spain 3 days later. So it was really, really good.
Right. Okay. So how long have you been having chemo for?
So I've had it on and off almost as soon as I was diagnosed. So about 2 years now.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 different sorts.
because it's very interesting. Because my dad, when my dad found out he had cancer, and it was until he was told, there's nothing we can do, palliative care, and like we can give you chemo. And obviously my dad was very different in his late 60s, and he was like, I do not want that. That is the last thing and a lot of people elect to not have radio or chemo, right? So,
Absolutely.
but I just want to go back and touch on what you were saying about that interesting decision of going, okay, well, I'm electing not to have this session of chemo because I want to have a good time and what have you, because you have a family, you have what now? Four
Yep.
children.
4 children.
Yeah, four children. And my question would be then with perhaps them, because I know the girls are older, and your other half, your wife, in terms of how do I word this? Like, were they supportive of that decision, or were they a bit like, no, James, we want you to have this chemo because we want you here longer, or no, we do want to enjoy Easter with you? How did that plan out?
Yeah, it's difficult. And they're all kind of relatively different. So Danielle, my wife, is very much like, you've got a packed calendar because you've chosen that you want to go on this holiday, visit these people. I went and drove a narrow boat, never done that. All these kind of mad kind of
In the
bonkers
Norfolk
things.
Broads?
No, in near Birmingham. Still would
Oh,
recommend, very nice. Maybe not doing it in January. It was a little
oh
chilly.
God, yeah.
But it's all these things that you kind of think, oh, I've never done that. Let's give it a whirl. And so my wife, Danielle, really understood that. The girls were like, we just want more time with you. So they were kind of finding it a little bit more tricky. So Isabel's 18, Millie is 17, and Betsy is 13. So they are like kind of, oh, we just want more time. And I'm like, well, you know what I'm like on chemo. So when I'm poorly, we can't really hang out very well because,
No.
I'm just sleeping and feeling sorry for myself.
Yeah.
But then when I'm feeling good, we do. So it's about kind of saying, when I'm feeling good, that's worthwhile. Let's get that quality time. And then baby Ted doesn't have a clue. He's 18 months now.
Yeah.
So a bit awkward having wires and things hanging out of me. He's like, oh, I'll have a bit of that. No, that's awfully painful to daddy.
Daddy's a robot.
Absolutely. So
it's
fun.
weird that you just said, like, you're poorly, and you keep saying you're poorly, and you keep saying like, oh, it's so dramatic. And I guess it's such an English way of dealing with things. And as you know, on the podcast, I've spoken to so many people from all walks of life, and it's so interesting how we deal with it all. Like, how or why do you think you are the way that you are about this? Because you seem very matter of fact about the whole thing, and you're only 42 now.
Yeah.
42? Yeah. So you're
What is it?
42, way too young to be told you're going to die pretty soon. And you've got this family and all that kind of stuff. And you've always had this lust for life anyway. So why is it you seem to be okay with it? Or maybe you're not, and talk me through that.
No, it is that wonderful British, like, mustn't grumble. We're all perfectly fine here. Let's carry on. I'll tell you what it is, and actually we'll touch on kind of what really affected me is that my mum died when I was 25, maybe,
Okay.
something like that.
Okay.
So she also had cancer. And we didn't talk about it enough. And it was very much like, we were going to be fine, like, we're going to have some chemo. And it was never like this lurking kind of, we never spoke about the spectre that lurks when somebody has cancer. And I don't think I was as ready for it when she then kind of just got really, really ill, and she had chemotherapy right up to the end. And so she didn't get much quality time because she was trying to live for longer. And so yeah, it was that kind of inspired me, because that was my first big experience of grief, losing my mum when I was pretty young. And I was like, and in the back of your mind, it does affect you. And so when it happened to me, I was like, I want to do things differently. I want this to be absolutely, there are no taboos. Or, I speak about death so often, people get bored of it. I will joke about it really terribly. It's kind of, I think it was I think one of the kids was saying something like, oh, Betsy was like, when she learns to drive, like, well, I'll be dead. So, hopefully, it's literally like kind of the brutality of it is now, because it is spoken about so much, it's always kind of in the front of our minds. It means that you can ask anything, and there's never a moment you go, I'm scared about this, Dad. Can we talk about it? There's no British stiff upper lip about it. It's like, it's such an open book. And that's the way I've done it. It's not right for everybody, of course. It's just the way that I experienced my mum's death and just went, well, I'm not doing it that way.
Yeah.
And so I think it's quite successful. We also have counselling as well. So there's a local charity called the Sarah Lee Trust, who have been amazing looking after me and Danielle. and that's where I get my anger out. And I'm like, kind of, this is not fair. I've just kind of, my job is great. I've got a lovely house and, everything. Like my 20s were a bit of a car crash. 30s were all right. And then, kind of just coming to the end of my 30s and 40s, it's like, I've got the house and I've got the gorgeous wife and I've got a new baby and the children doing, A's and A stars. And I'm like, everything's coming together. And I go, oh, bad news, you've got some cancer. And that's where that fury comes out. And it's about having somebody to talk to friends, and then getting some professional help as well has been a huge part of helping on that journey. But I think one thing that we'll touch on is very much that what I always say is that I have such an easy part of this. For me, I think dying is quite straightforward. Again, this is only my opinion. As far as I'm concerned, so I will basically get to the stage where I'm not me anymore, and then load me up with morphine. I don't want to know about it. As soon as I can't get out of bed, as soon as I'm pissing myself, that's it. Get me in the hospice and get me done. It's everyone else who's left behind that has it so much harder. And I think that's the thing, looking back, about losing my mum and how we kind of all struggled with that hole in our lives. I really feel that for me, I'm going to be heartbroken. I'm heartbroken now about things I can't do. I'll be able to do a Father's Day, a father's speech at my daughter's weddings, watch Ted do sports day when he's 5 years old. All those kind of things hurt. But I'm dead, so all right, it's a bit sad, but everyone else has to live with that. And that's why I think the people who are left behind are the ones who really are the heroes in this cancer journey. Because, like I say, I go through treatment, I feel rough, get very poorly, and under the weather. But really, everyone has to then support me, and they love me, and they cook me dinner and go, "Oh, should I bake you another cake?" Yes, please. And so it's all that. So everyone's always fussing and making such a fuss of me, and in the end, I just die, and everyone who's left behind has to deal with the hole that the incredible James McKinnon leaves.
In the end, I just die. Sometimes I use quotes on the Instagram, and I might just go for that one in the end. Very quickly, kind of with the anger thing, so whose idea was it to go to the counselling?
So that was straight away offered by the
Right.
NHS. It
Nice.
was, McMillan said,
Sorry,
here's
a
a
moment
leaflet.
for McMillan.
Absolutely.
A moment for McMillan. Every moment for McMillan.
They've just been amazing. And yeah, they are there every step of the journey, really. So from the moment you kind of come out of the colonoscopy, where they go and find the tumours in me, like you walk into that room for the chat, relatives room, this isn't going to go well. In come the McMillan nurses, like, this is definitely not going well for McMillan here. And so, and that's it. And then they basically, literally, right there, that is their card. It sits on my desk, and I can phone them whenever I like. They're just amazing. And as part of that journey is then a case of, they will talk me through the treatment options and refer me for scans, and and get me part of the system rolling. And as part of that, they go, also there's counselling. Here's the number. We'll book you in. There's things like kind of finances, all that stuff they do for you without you even having to think about hospice care. They arrange those phone calls. So I've been really fortunate in that respect, that it doesn't take much effort on my part. It just, all these things happen. Imagine having a speed dial to your GP. Right? I don't even have to get in the waiting list. Like, hello, I've got the mobile number. All these incredible things. Cancer and all that.
I live in Dubai, Jim. I can WhatsApp my doctor and get a prescription WhatsApp to me, and the prescription delivered. Like, it's mental. Sam and Sarah always just find it bizarre. So yes, McMillan, for anybody outside of the UK, are just this cancer support system. They're all volunteers. As far as I'm aware, majority. Actually, yeah, you're right. Majority are now, and they are just phenomenal, and they help so much with my dad as well. So always, I will raise so much money for McMillan and so much money for St Michael's Hospice. They were just incredible. What was, if you can perhaps describe it, and I don't know whether it's going to be as dramatic as perhaps they make out in the movies and such like that, but when you said you walked into that room and you knew it was going to be bad news, but when you received that news, presumably were you with Danielle, were you with family, or whatever?
I was with
went through your head?
The thing is because I'm a realist, and so you go blood in your poo, and then they did the colonoscopy, and it's on the screen, and you're looking at it and you go, that's quite big and
white.
Yeah, it's not looking very pretty. And it hurt like hell as well. And they're like, colonoscopies don't tend to hurt. And yeah, it was like kind of rodding a drain because they couldn't get past the tumor to look further up inside my bowels. So that's where I'm like, okay, this isn't good. And then, so this is kind of like within maybe 45 minutes of the colonoscopy, you're in the relatives room. And so in that time, I'm there going, okay, I'd already prepared myself for bad news because you naturally do. Blood in the poo means cancer. It doesn't, don't panic, team.
Okay.
It doesn't necessarily. But you already have that worst case scenario in your head. And I'm a real person that always likes to go to the worst case scenario so you're never disappointed. It doesn't kind of make me morose or really kind of maudlin about life or anything like, woe is me, the world is falling down. But I like to prepare myself mentally for bad news so that when something bad does happen, it's not quite such a shock. And yes, so as they sit down and they say, so we found this quite large obstruction and we think it's cancer. It's not necessarily, we've got to do some biopsies and all these things that they have to say. But in my mind, like, okay, well, that's cancer then. And then you say, okay, how long have I got? And they say, well, we need to do proper scans and all this kind of stuff. So you find out later. And that's because this is basically the colonoscopy team are different to the oncology team. So the oncology deal with just cancer. There's all kinds of other stuff that goes on with your colon, so they're colon specialists. And so it was only when I got spoke to the oncology team, and again, they're like, no, we're going to be okay. We're going to try and cure it. But when they say you've got cancer, it isn't necessarily a death sentence anymore. As I say, I was 50-50 for how that would go. And I found that out by researching, which was scary. Everybody says stay off Google. I didn't because I wanted to be ready for the worst case. And then everything else was going to be good news in my mind. It was like, if they say, oh yeah, ignore all that stuff online, that's all scaremongering, you're going to be fine. I'm like, well, what's the worst that happened? I've got a bit worried. Instead, I mentally prepared myself for the worst. So it was almost expected that I was going to get, you've got cancer and it's all over. Was really what I was ready for. And yeah, so I didn't cry at the time. Me and Danielle went to sit on the beach. We had a cuddle. And that, I suppose that was that initial where you go, oh, I was really looking forward to retiring. I wanted to convert the loft and turn it into a pub games room. These things I wanted to do purely selfishly. And then you start to go, oh, goodness me. At this time, Danielle's pregnant. And you're like, oh, okay, well, am I going to see this baby? How long do I have with this baby? What about the girls? This is going to ruin their exams. It's going to all these kind of this huge pressure on them. All the things that they're going to be missing their dad for. All that stuff kind of comes flooding to you because it's not about kind of getting a cancer diagnosis that thinks, oh, that's it, I'm going to die. It's about the effect it has on the repercussions to everybody else.
Yeah.
I think as I said before, that's what I find really hard. And it was at that moment sitting on the beach that you go, oh, right, yeah, there's lots of things I can't do now. And so that's why I switched it around as quickly as I could. Okay, but what can I do? Because I've got, let's say, best case scenario, I've got 5 years. I've got 50 years to fit into 5. So let's go for a hammer and tongs.
So what was the first thing you did?
What was the first thing? We had a big party. We had a summer barbecue because my birthday's in January, so it's always raining. So I said, right, this summer I'm going to have a July birthday, and I did, and I invited lots of people, and everyone came. It was the glorious day. I was on barbecue all day, and it was drank too much. It was just a really incredible event. And I made a speech about kind of living your life and all these kind of things. So yeah, that's what we did. Is we went, right, we're going to have a massive party because cancer doesn't own us. I think the phrase that I use is that cancer is this kind of thing that stalks us and tries to own us and tries to scare us. But if you bring it into the light and go, look, it thinks it can win, but watch me live in the face of this. Watch me win and beat it. All right, it might kill me, but in the meanwhile, that fight and that battle is about me proving that it cannot affect my life until it absolutely has to, which is when I peg it.
And
what else can I do?
Talking of events then, tell me about your funeral. Why did you decide to have a funeral, and talk me through it?
Well, rumor has it I'm a complete narcissist. And a complete control freak. So I think cast my mind back to my mum's funeral. So many people came, so many people were there, and everyone was like, "Oh, she'd have loved it. Wasn't it a wonderful day? Such sad experiences there. Didn't they say nice things? And oh yeah, it was really what a gorgeous thing." And I was like, "Yeah, it was really good. I don't want to miss out on that. I would like to hear all the nice things people are going to say about me." I want to decide on the music. I want to choreograph when I walk in. I'm not when I'm going in on the coffin. I want to arrange the we called it hashtag fake wake afterwards, which was an absolutely wild party. Everything I wanted to. So it also made it easy for everyone who's left behind. It's like, oh, what music would he have liked? Or would he have wanted a church or a cremation? Like, no, this is it. It is planned down to the letter, guys. Just press play. It is literally a PowerPoint presentation. Just press play at the church. So it's ready to roll. There's speeches, the people did some video messages. It was absolutely gorgeous. There were moments of hilarity. I met the priest beforehand and said, look, I'm thinking about having 2 funerals. He's like, well, I've not done this before, but let's talk. And so, yeah, he was wonderful. And he said, okay, well, let's go with that. So we spoke about what the day was going to look like. I gave him a eulogy that I kind of wrote about myself, and he delivered that wonderfully. Everyone was laughing loads about my ridiculous life. And then there were real elements of absolute heartbreaking sadness and lots of tears. So it was a full range of emotions. But personally, and I think a lot of the people that I spoke to about the funeral it was cathartic. It was like this abandon. You go, death is trying to win again. But watch this. Even at a funeral, you can find so much joy. And there's that thing. So my children have never been to a funeral before. They won't. Hopefully, they won't go to a funeral before mine. So that first time, I wanted to literally be there holding their hand, saying, "This is how it works. This is, the order of service. This is where you sit. This is." Everyone was wearing black. I wasn't. I just wore my wedding suit, which I'm getting buried in. So I thought I'm definitely going to stick to that.
Really getting some use out of that suit.
Really, absolutely. It's a great suit. It's a great suit. But that's the thing. And then, so as people are left behind, you go, oh, it's his wedding suit. Can't send it to charity. Plant me in it then. Stick it in the ground. So with the children, it was a really useful experience. They were very nervous about it, but afterwards they said it was really good and helpful. And so I just wanted to be there with them, holding their hands. There's so many benefits. There were people from primary school who arrived, who hadn't seen for 20 years. They came to my funeral, and if I would have been dead, I wouldn't have seen them. So again, it's like you get to catch up. Like, do you remember that time when we fell in the river? I'm like, no, I don't. Yes, I do actually. I've still got a scar. I couldn't have had that chat if I hadn't had my pretend funeral. Because if I said to these people, I'm having a party, they're like, I live in Essex, clear off. But when you say I'm having a funeral, like, oh, I suppose I better show up.
Kind of make the effort. And the whole thing is amazing because you're right in terms of, and again, I've unfortunately been to more funerals than I'd like, and it's recently my friend James, we're all there and we're all saying he would have loved this. And by the way, he is Irish, so it was in Waterford, so a true Irish wake.
Incredible.
We're like, this is actually great crack, and Jimmy's not even here to enjoy it. So you've decided to do it. What I wanted to share was, if you don't mind me doing this, Sarah shared with me your speech.
Oh yeah.
That you read. Now I don't know if you have it to hand and you would like to read it. If not, I will read it. But if you have it to hand, I would love it if you have it, because I thought it was fascinating that you read it out and then you've then kind of shared this with your friends on Facebook.
I did. I put it on the internet, and I even removed the privacy settings, which was a terrifying thing. So yeah, I do actually have it handy.
I would love you to read that.
I will read it to you. And the thing is, I've already regurgitated most of it, Katie. You've maybe the same of it. So we opened with a gag, of course, which was, well, this is weird, because I was stood in front of everybody at my own funeral, which is very strange. So I started with, thanks for being here today. A funeral is a big event, a chance to get together with family and friends, talk about happy times and reflect on life. I did not want to miss out. I'm not scared of dying, but missing out on life's landmarks and time with my family and friends is the hardest part. For me to witness what my funeral will be like, putting my family through it twice is the most selfish thing I'll ever do. So thank you for humouring me. And that's just to touch on that. It was quite selfish because everyone has to go through this grief twice. So it was selfish, but...
Well, you say that, funnily enough, if I can interrupt you, it's almost to the point where And maybe this is how my brain works as well. It's almost to the point, like, when you do actually die, Jim, it's be like, well, we've done it once. Like, have we got to go to the next one? Or
Yeah.
you know when you get invited to a wedding, but you find out they're already legally married. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to come all that way for a party, so
Yeah.
maybe they won't even turn up. to the
I
next-
don't care. I won't. Well, I won't know. Won't I? Whatever. Do whatever you like. Just have it down the chippy. I don't care. So, so then I go on to speak about cancer. So, cancer has decided the finale, but it hasn't won. I decide how this plays out to the last moment. My life has been incredible, and that continues here and will carry on for as long as I choose. I will dictate how I leave this world and the events, milestones, and celebrations along the way. Today is just one example of that, of me owning my fate. The idea that death can lurk in the shadows and stalk me, define me, somehow lessen what it is to make me be alive, it makes me mad. I will drag cancer out of the dark, show its ugly face, and prove it has no power when faced with this tsunami of love, joy, and happiness my life is filled with. We are undefeated. We have won because of every phenomenal smile, laugh, and memory that has gone before. It's sad it has to come to an end, but wow, it's been worth it. Unsurprisingly, I'll offer you a transport analogy, because I'm a train door. I'm not a train you missed. We were on a journey together, and the ride has been incredible. I'm so lucky to have shared it with you. We still caught the train and had the best time. Remember those amazing moments on the journey and be as grateful as I am for our time together. I'm just so sorry that I have to get off the stop early. Something I've learned is that death and grief is a box you have to carry. Sometimes it's a small box that fits in your pocket. Sometimes it's a big box that's too heavy to carry. Sometimes that box of grief is locked up tightly and nothing leaks. Sometimes it has a safe viewing window so you can look inside without being hurt. And of course, sometimes it's huge, wide open, and it is suffocating. And no matter how hard you try, you can't close the box. The most important thing to remember is that when the box is heavy and it seems too much, there is always someone who can help you carry it. You can never put the box down, though. You'll carry it forever. Yet it isn't something you should be sad about. It's the price you pay for loving. The more you love, the heavier the box is going to be. But the exchange rate is worth it. Every moment that cackled with energy makes it worthwhile. Never accept mediocrity. Love with all your heart in the knowledge that it's always worth it. To be free of the box of grief would mean never having had the love or the memories in the first place. To live hard, live happily, because you don't get a second chance. Live your life like it's a film you'd like to watch rather than an episode of Gogglebox. Surround yourself with friends. Don't be too serious. Get a decent work-life balance. Life is precious. Don't squander it by holding grudges or focusing on negativity. Love easily and find joy in every moment. Remember how lucky we are to be alive. I'm not strong enough to talk to you about how I feel about my wife and children today. Those emotions are overwhelming. And I know the words will choke. Please please look after Danielle and the children for me. However, I've always been able to lean on music to help me express myself. Music has played a huge part in my life, and quotes leap out at me from songs that inspire me. Love lifts us up where we belong, because you're amazing just the way you are. The greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. And then the last part was I was playing a song, which was, I'm now going to play you a song that's a promise from a father to his child. It's a promise I've tried to live by, but I can no longer fulfill. So I'm playing it to you today as I'm asking you to take over that promise for me. Alexander Hamilton sings it to his son, but I apply the words to each of my children. The lyrics are, I'll make the world safe and sound for you. And if we lay a strong enough foundation, we'll pass it on to you, we'll give the world to you. I ask you, my amazing friends, to please carry on for me when I'm gone. And then we play Dear Theodosia from Hamilton, which is heartbreaking as he sings it basically to his son about how he wants to support and love and make the world better. And it strikes me because I can't do that. Because, I mean, I've done what I can, but as a parent, you want to be there forever and you can't. And so that was my kind of lament. As we have all the positivity in the speech and things, there's also the flip side of me about what I'm losing. And I wanted that to be at the funeral so that we, it was, like I say, it was a balance. It was the happiness, but also about like owning up to the fact that, yeah, this is tough and hard. So yes, that was my bit of the thing, and I'll probably record that, and it'll be my face at the funeral on a video screen. I'm thinking about wearing a sheet, coming as a ghost for the screen. Bad news, I didn't make it. I don't know. I think something like that.
That's something only you can do. Was there a big come down at all after the fake wake for you?
Not really. Um, it was actually, we had, so like, yeah, like any party, you kind of had a debrief really after the event. We kind of stayed up until 4 a.m. talking about, wasn't that good? I'm really glad I got to attend. And then you go, okay, what's next? You go, well, run out of parties now, so now I've just got to die. Because you go, we've had your funeral. What do we do in the interim? So that's when you go, right, I'm now going to book in with all these people who came along. So, okay, so I'm going to have a day where I'm going to be in, so I'm in London on this day, in this pub, not being on chemo. Come and see me, open invite. And then I'm going to be in Essex, and then I'm in Brighton, then I'm in Oxfordshire. And it is like this open invite saying, you know, like at a wedding when you don't get to talk to people for very long. It then inspires you to go, I really enjoyed our brief chat, let's do it more. So that's how we continued to ride the kind of this wave of positivity, actually, that came out of having a funeral in advance. Because like I say, I got to experience it, I got to see people, and it reaffirmed how wonderful and magical life is and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's how we avoided the natural come down of what happens next, by just making more plans. And yeah, so I'm booked until August. Every weekend that I'm not poorly, I am doing something. And sometimes chemo changes, so we can kind of squeeze in a few dates. But yeah, it's great to really drive that forwards. And that's all you can do, because life, as I say, life is for living. You know, it's very easy. We enjoy sitting down watching telly, and that's what the week is for. But weekends, let's have some fun.
I mean, that was always kind of your, you know, I've known you for, gosh, now 15, 20 years maybe.
Mm.
Through our mutual friends, and I've always known you as that anyway. It's always like we always knew if we were going to go into town and go down the old town, and if Jim was going to be there and Murphy and all this, and you're like, okay, you know it's going to be a good night out. So I guess it doesn't surprise me actually that you've taken this into what is going to ultimately be the end of your life, right?
Yeah.
And what about then in terms of I guess that whole thing of, you know, any regrets, anything that you wish you had have done before having this ridiculous, is it prognosis? I never know the terminology for each one.
Diagnose, and then you get I think a prognosis is how long I've got, maybe. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
know.
Well, either or, I suppose. Is there
Yeah,
something
something like
that you wish you could have done that you're going to try and cram in, or is it something that's now, you know, gone by and?
I think that looking back thing is a natural part of any kind of grief process. When you go, I wish I would have asked my mum what her favorite color was, or whatever that kind of thing is.
Yeah.
And so I kind of applied that to my outlook, which was, you know, again, the open book, anything you want to ask, anything you want to do. But in terms of the life that we live, I think there's not many people, I don't think, that look back and go, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that, because everything kind of happens for a reason. So, you know, I had my first marriage. We got married when I was 21, something, 22. And yeah, and that didn't work out. And you look back and go, well, you know, got married too young, shouldn't have done that. But I got 3 children from that marriage, you
Amazing
know?
children.
And I learnt so much about who I am and kind of what I want in a relationship. And so, yeah, I wouldn't change that at all. It's made me such a better person. You know, my career path, things that you've done, like all things that could have been better. But again, everything that happens in life happens for a reason. There are times you think, you know, maybe I shouldn't have got really, really drunk at my sister's wedding, fallen over and smashed my head open. That was a poor choice. That was a poor choice. But, you know, I think at the time I was arguing with Chris and Murphy. So they mopped up the blood, and very nice. A few small moments like that. But really, if you look back about regrets, no. Because again, it's a story. When you do bonkers things, in hindsight, you go, well, do you remember that time we set fire to that car? Ooh. So I didn't set fire to a car. Set fire to a Portaloo. Different story.
How do you set fire to a Portaloo? They're plastic.
Getting covered in a lot of shit, to be honest. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not even going to go into that. So what's next, Jim? As you say, you're 12 months into what they told you was going to be 18 months. You feel strong enough that you're going to make it. We're now in March. You're going to make it to Christmas. What's the plans for the next year then?
Yeah, I think that's difficult, because you start looking 6 months ahead. You're going, well, I'm really on literally borrowed time now based on the initial prognosis. So in that situation, you kind of, like I say, I'm kind of planned up until August, and trying to do as much as possible, and making it kind of almost a conscious choice to wring every moment out about when you do spend time with people. So when you're hanging out, you've almost got a plan, like We're going to go to this pub that we haven't been to before. Recently, I did a pub crawl around Hastings Town. I've been living in the town for years, but I'm like, nope, we're going to do this, and loads of people came along. So everything you do, it becomes a special event because it feels like it could be your last one. Holidays and things, I've almost decided I don't think I'm going to fly again. I recently got the train to Berlin. Just because I'm transport document. I've never been on a sleeper train. I'm going to take all of my children on a sleeper train. So we had a 6-berth compartment. It was an absolute scream, really good fun.
Amazing.
Did wake up at 6:30 in Berlin. What do you do at 6:30 in Berlin? Just take some photographs of tourist spots is my advice if you arrive early, because of course there's no tourists there. So anyway, so what that was is that so we got the train over there and then we flew back, and I was like, flying is a faff. I don't like flying, so I'm like, right, life's too short. I'm not flying anymore. So we're looking at kind of getting a train down to somewhere, or down to the south of France or something, just because it's so that it then becomes the journey becomes part of the kind of event, as opposed to flying is like a necessary evil. So trying to cut things like that out. Not eating pizza crusts. Life's too short for pizza crusts. Naff them off. Just things like that. What's next for me? Just focusing on what's really,
but that is
what's
so
really
funny,
important.
isn't it? All these things. I don't know if you've ever been a people pleaser, but have you stopped people pleasing? You just do it? Are you being selfish?
No, I mean, I've always been a bit brutally honest, actually. I've always needed someone nearby to keep me in check, because I do say it how it is sometimes. But then again, I suppose I also want everyone to be part of a fun event and things, and everybody experiencing a good time and happy time. So I'll enjoy talking to people about me dying, talking about what's going on in their lives, about what's making them sad. And I love being like a shoulder to cry on is one of my things. So is that people pleasing? No, I don't know. It's kind of it's not selfish, is it? I think there's one of these things that we say there's no such thing as a selfless act, because even when you're doing someone a favor or buying them a gift, it still makes you feel nice inside. So it's not
Feel
really
nice
selfish.
inside.
Yeah.
But what about in terms of I lost my train of thought there. Sorry, that was totally my fault. In terms of balls, what did you just say about people pleasing, regretting
talking
stuff?
to people.
Oh yes, that is exactly right. You said you love talking to people about the fact that you're dying.
Yeah.
And are you, I think you are, but like me, have this kind of sick little mind that you just can't wait to tell people, because it makes people feel so uncomfortable that you kind of watch them squirm. And then, like, again, what we were saying is like their reaction to you saying that, oh gosh, sorry about that. Oh, I've got to go. Dinner's ready. That's my mum on the phone or whatever. Like, how do you deal with that? Do you relish in it?
So I was at a work do on Friday with a lot of people I hadn't seen, because I've been on and off with work through chemo, and some people didn't know. And so I was chatting to them. They're like, I haven't seen you around for a while. How's things? I went, oh, I'm dying of cancer. I've got about 18 months. And I mean, there was like, oh, that's bad. Is there anything? I mean, I'll have a pint. Yes.
Because what can you do? When I first messaged you, I was like, hey, James, how are you? That's a weird question to ask someone that's dying.
Yeah. And it is. It feels weird, but it's not. It's like we're still living in the same way. Another thing on kind of when people kind of then they treat you very weird when they're ill, because the first thing they go, oh, I'm feeling bad. Not as bad as you. Not as bad as you. Promise. Like, you're allowed to, we all have pain. We can all be ill as well. Just because my one is a little bit more kind of short term, in terms of the life expectancy. You're cold, you'll probably get over it. But nonetheless, people still feel rubbish, and I have so much sympathy for people, because also I'm feeling rubbish all the time. So I never used to get ill. Actually, I was certainly very, very healthy. So as a result, now I'm like, God, I see what everyone was moaning about. It's really rubbish. Like chest infections, they're tough, aren't they? So yeah, I have so much more sympathy. So in fact, when everybody does feel awkward about talking about being ill in front of me, it's like, no, I have so much more understanding. Don't be shy about being you,
That is such a weird way of looking at it. And funnily enough, I did the same, nearly did the same thing, because I have been really ill for a month with bronchitis and laryngitis and a stomach bug and all this. And I nearly kind of said, oh, sorry, it's been a month. I've been so ill. And I was like, but the same thing. I always remember Sam Potter, a friend of ours, she would say something. This is when my dad was poorly with cancer, or maybe even after he died, I can't remember. And she would say something. She's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I feel like I shouldn't be moaning. And everybody's you're allowed to moan. It doesn't matter. I'm not going, listen, you think you've got it bad. I've got it real bad over here. I mean, you hold the trump card, right? So
Yeah,
you
there
would
is that.
win. Top trump sad stories. I mean, you'd get through to the live finals at X Factor, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, beyond judges' houses, definitely.
Oh, without a doubt, beyond judges' houses, you'd be live finals. Probably voted out like, second or third week on live finals.
I think so. Yeah, that sounds about right. With someone with like kind of something more aggressive that's faster and they don't get a chance to say goodbye. Yeah, that'd be the cancer X factor. Yeah.
Mate, we're missing a trick there. Maybe you need to cancel all your plans and we need to be doing like the cancer factor. Oh,
Cancer factor. Look out. Okay. I don't think it's going to get made. I think it should be made. It should be made, but I think there's going to be some execs that are going to get a little bit twitchy bum about it.
Don't talk about twitchy bum because that brings us
Oh,
back
yeah.
around to the beginning of the whole podcast.
But it is the cancer card is great, and I lay that down heavy. Quite often, there was something the other day, like there was a prescription that wasn't ready, and they're like, and they said, "Oh, it's not ready. Can he wait?" It's like, "No, he has cancer." And, and then this pharmacist is like, "Okay, we'll see what we can do." Likewise, I take the children out of school to go on various different wild little long weekends, and I'm like, "Hi, as the family struggles, this is one of our last opportunities for this holiday." Like, this is the third last opportunity for a holiday, Mr. McKinnon. I'm like, cancer? So do you want to let us have a Friday off?
Jog
Yeah,
on, I've got cancer. Listen,
yeah,
it
play the
works,
secret.
right?
It is working great.
It's absolutely worked. What about the kind of let's talk about you dying in terms of you're gonna die. We don't know when that's gonna be, but you are gonna die. So what is the conversation been around with Danielle, the girls, Ted, and what have you? Like, what are they going to do, and what have you told them to do after you've gone?
Yeah, and that's the thing about, because you don't make it a taboo, you talk about it all the time, and they'll be like, "Hang on a minute." So as a result, we've kind of laid down some plans, like my wishes, which was that I don't want to die at home because I think that will, I've loved this house and this house is full of joy and happiness, but then it's always like, this is the room he died. So ship me off to St Michael's Hospice, please, as soon as I'm not myself. So that's basically when I think they said when I start pissing myself, I'm like, nah, none of that. There'll be, a long period of the way that the last kind of months that anyone who's been through watching somebody die is, when you usually get a serious infection, and then you can't shake that off, and then eventually your body starts to give up because of the infection. There's a chance with me, I'll probably waste away because the cancer will take all of my energy. No matter how many bacon sandwiches I have, the cancer will eat all of that for dinner, and then I'll have no strength and energy, which then means I'll get an infection and then I'll die. So as we watch that towards the last kind of 3 months, then we know kind of where I'm going to be. I'm already on some morphine because there's lots of pains, lots of pain. Cancer isn't pain-free at all. So I'm on some morphine at the moment, and then ultimately we just dial that right up until I don't know what's going on. I don't want, the thing is, and this is the part, selfish me, I don't want people to see me dying. I want to die alone with a nurse, because those of us that are listening to this will probably have heard a death rattle. I have. This is not, that is etched on my memory, watching my mum pass away and just struggling for those last breaths. You see it on the films like, "Oh, she's gone." No, we know she is going. And is she going yet? And like, please just die. Please just die. No, she's still here. She's taking another 10 minutes worth of breath. That is not the saying goodbye that I want my family to have to go through, because it's haunting.
Yeah, it's a
However,
sound that is etched in my brain from my dad. Yeah.
But then the children are like, "We want to be there and hold your hand." And I'm like, "You don't. I promise you really don't." But they went, and so you try and convince them. But ultimately, this is why I've gone, once I check out, once I leave home and go to the hospice, it's like, morphine me up and you guys do whatever the hell you like and live with the consequences. But yeah, and again, it's kind of just trying to convince them, like, it is horrific watching somebody die. It's really tough. And they're like, "Yeah, but we want this." Like, the fact that we can have that chat. I could have been hit by a bus, or I could have only had 3 months to live, So there are so many aggressive cancers out there. Heart attacks where somebody kind of recovers from the heart attack and then they just die a bit and then they get better and then they die. So many things. I feel so fortunate that I've got this time to have these chats about that real end of life stuff. And again, the hospice is incredible. They're like, "Whatever you want, we'll sort it out." So yeah, and I sat there with Danielle about do not resuscitate, things like that. When it gets to a certain stage, like, do not try and save me. Don't, kind of chest compressions and breaking my ribs just for another couple of months at most. So all those kind of things are difficult chats that I am fortunate enough to have had. So yeah, I feel very blessed.
And then, wow, yeah, because they are super tough decisions. Weirdly, my dad was the opposite of you. He never wanted to go to the hospice. You know, he loved his home, and he also didn't really care. He was just like, I'm just going to die here, and I don't care if that's upsetting for you. My dad also never liked Christmas. He always used to take the mick out of Christmas, and he died on the 13th of December. And he was actually only really poorly maybe like the last 10 days, 2 weeks. Fortunately, for the 7 months in advance,
Yeah.
he wasn't in much pain. And he always said, like, when he was really bad, he was like, I'm going to make sure you have such a miserable Christmas. And we're like, thanks, Dad. Thanks so much. I mean, he nailed it, really. And then, after the time, you're gone. After you're gone, what have you spoken to Danielle and the kids about, I don't know, I guess maybe how to live their lives after you've gone and your legacy and things like that?
Yeah, and that's a really difficult part, is the trying to kind of posthumously fill this void with. So it's things like writing lots of letters, lots of kind of voice notes and messages and things for to play beyond the grave. It's things like and also having a bit of fun, like things like doing a prediction about when Chris is going to die from diabetes and just getting that to be played every year. So like, see, I predicted this one perfectly. Before I was dead. So in terms of what's left, what you do about future planning, I can't own, as much as I'm not around, and I don't want. For example, let's say if I recorded a father of the bride speech, that would be a bummer on the day, right? Like, anyway, so we're having a great party, like, here's dead dad. So again, I think that's the type of thing I would potentially record or write down, or someone might want to say a few words, but we can't. I can't ruin things by being dead, because it's, people are going to be sad. So I'm really leaving people to it. Weirdly, I'm kind of relinquishing control for from eventually, because people just got to get on and live their lives. But in terms of legacy, all I just keep banging on about, and as I'm banging today, about living your life, about just work-life balance, about surrounding yourself with wonderful people. Negative. How often do we see people just kind of going, "Oh, I can't be asked." It's just this lethargy that I don't really understand, and so I'm trying to instill in the children. Danielle is just like me. That's why I married her. But instilling in the children and kind of anyone else I come across, it's just kind of just, if you need an excuse, use me. It's like, can't be asked to go to this party, or I really can't be bothered to. I don't know. Let's say you go, I want a career. I want a new career, one that gives me better work-life balance. But that means I need to retrain. Oh, I can't be bothered. I'm like, it's worth it. Do the training, do the thing. Use me as your excuse, whatever that is. Like, kind of just trying to do a bit of, I don't know, advice. Just give people excuses. I don't know. It's that's all I can think for like beyond the grave.
No, I mean, it makes sense. I always my mum died of heart failure, but it was due to heavy smoking. She was smoking between 50 and 60 a day. And the irony that she didn't die of cancer, however, she was just clogged, like full
Yeah.
of tar and whatnot. And, I within reason, but I do use it. In Dubai, so many people smoke here because cigarettes are like £1.50 a packet or something. So smoking is still, and you can smoke indoors. And so a lot of people still smoke here. And I'm sometimes a bit like, ew, who smokes anymore, dude? Like, they're so out. It's not even cool anymore. And then they'll say something and I go, yeah, my mum died of smoking. And you see the kind of like, they're putting it to their mouth or not. So, and I try and do that, but within reason, because I'm not here to preach. But my mum loved a fag. Like, she loved smoking.
Yeah.
She died doing what she loved.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'll have a fag now. What's the worst that can happen? Cancer.
Well, you might as well get lung cancer. Just add it to the list.
Just put it on the list. Yeah.
We've probably touched on this anyway, but as we wrap up, it is something that I always ask people on the podcast is, what is your grief relief? What has kind of gotten you through this last 18 months, 2 years?
Zooming out. And this is something I learned from, I had some counselling a long time after my mum died, actually. But actually something completely different. But as we know about counselling, it tends to bring you back to parental stuff and past trauma. And I really learned this technique about zooming out and looking at the bigger picture. And that's the thing about grief, is that it is so all-consuming. It's like this individual is gone, and you ache and you hurt and you weep and you rail. But if you just take a moment and you can zoom out and go, okay, but okay, I've got a nice house. Yeah, we have something nice for dinner. I've got some plans in a week's time that I can hopefully look forward to. There's some letters that I can read. There's an old video I can watch. There's some photographs I can look at that will help get me through this moment. And I've used the analogy again with grief is that it's waves of grief, and it'll drown you, but it's and this wave will wash over you. But if you can, your head will surface, and when it does, you take that breath and you go, okay, is it another big wave or is it going to be a small wave? But you've still got through it, and you've got through that, 30 seconds even, or you've got through an hour or a minute, and it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again in a week, or it might happen in 6 months, and you're going to be allowed to laugh again. It's going to be okay because you've still got life. You're still alive. You've still got so much to live for. And the individual who's died would, and me being the person that is dying, it makes me so sad that you guys are so sad. So, grieve absolutely as much as you can for yourself, but don't cry for me because you're the ones that are hurting, and I don't want you to be sad. Your pain is your pain, and you own that and do your best to experience it. But don't ever think for a moment that I'm wanting you to cry, or that you have to, out of respect for me, you have to be morose for a year and wear black or whatever. So yeah, I suppose that's my brief release, is just zooming out, looking at the bigger picture and realizing the person that's died doesn't want you to be sad. They want you to look after yourself, however that manifests itself.
Yeah, that's quite phenomenal, actually. Um, One thing I always ask as well is, which we spoke about earlier, is I always ask for a podcast recommendation or a book or an Instagram account that you just love. It doesn't have to relate to anything we've spoken about today. It's just what you love and what the listeners or the viewers could be interested in. And you immediately replied with, what did you reply with?
Oh, I'll share all my dork stories. Yes.
Dork recommendations. Okay.
Yeah.
So
the podcast. Yeah,
what
I
have you
listen to
got?
history, dorky old history. Actually, Russell Kane doing Evil Genius is very good at the moment on
So good. Isn't
YouTube
he
channel.
so good?
Hilarious. It's really, really good fun. And actually that's got some facts in it. So it's a giggle and some facts, just my type of thing. Yeah, that's quite fun when they go, actually, Mother Teresa was terrible and Margaret Thatcher was kind of all right. Like, whoa, I don't know about this. It's
It
really
was,
controversial.
for me, it was like when they really started like slating Charlie Chaplin, and Charlie Chaplin's a bit of a dick, and I'm like, really? The dude with the he didn't really say much though, so
Yeah, Evil Genius is definitely one of my favorites. And then the books I read post-apocalyptic fiction.
okay.
So end of the world happens, sometimes zombies, sometimes EMP pulse. And the best one is actually it's called, oh God, I don't know. It's called The Dead, or The Walking Dead. It's not The Walking Dead. And it's by a British author called R.R. Hayward. And he's written loads of books in this series it's about zombies. But usually in a zombie book, everyone's like, they're all shuffly, and everyone's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna go kill all the zombies. This is basically a guy called Howie who works in Tesco's. He's like, whoa, there's a whole lot of zombies. What do I do? And it just evolves into this. I mean, there's 27 books, and I'm obsessed. And it will take because it's British. It's so much better than some of the kind of American gun-toting, like, yeah, we're gonna go kill all the zombies and set up a camp and use some C4. Instead, he's like, I've got a broom handle. So that's the dorkiness that I really enjoy. Post-apocalyptic fiction, which then, in terms of just touching on what you said earlier, what's the advice? Is in the event of an apocalypse, you're going to need batteries, kids. You're going to need batteries, and if you need to collect rainwater, stick a rubble sack underneath your gutters for when it rains. So your roof collects it all, then put a rubble sack underneath the gutter, collects water, put it in the bath, boil it, whatever. Top tips for surviving the apocalypse.
Which is something I didn't think we would be discussing today. Oh, I tell you what, we didn't touch on the fact that the first thing we spoke about was a colostomy bag, and why is it now called a stoma?
Yes, so this stoma to you is Latin for an opening. So what happens is that it's my intestine pokes out my belly, and then it empties into a bag. So mine's actually called an ileostomy bag because it's a different part of the bowel. Colostomy is your colon, which is on your left side. Your small intestine as such is on your right-hand side. So mine's an ileostomy bag, but colostomy bags are more common. But the stoma is the actual bit of your intestine that pokes out of your belly. And pretty rank because it doesn't. You don't have a sphincter on that, so it goes whenever the heck it likes. You got to change that bags.
Oh my God, really?
Get ready with
I
the
guess
tissues.
it just comes out.
Yeah. So, for example, when I have a shower, I don't eat anything for 4 hours before showering. I thought people are like, I'll hop in the shower. Like, no, I'll wait 4 hours because I had a roast dinner. So I need to process that. Otherwise, things are going to get dicey in the shower. So, yeah, stoma life. So that's the thing they say when they do the operation. Like, we're going to give you a bag, but after the operation, we can reverse it. And they're like, yeah, you got permanent cancer. We're not reversing. So, bag for life, Tesco special. That's me.
How much did you pay for it?
0. Thank you, NHS.
Normally they're £1.50. Have the NHS been amazing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, talk about, as I said, I wasn't ill. I've never been poorly in the past, but now I'm like getting my money's worth. Geez, people wait so long for a scan. Like, okay, we've got a scan next week. Like the chemo care, the nurses, like I say, I have a speed dial to the GP surgery. Everything is instant and it is all free. It's just incredible that all this stuff is going, and it's that free parking in a hospital. Imagine that.
You get free parking at the hospital?
Yeah, drop the C card.
No
Cancel.
way. Can I do that? If I go to the Conquest, can I just be like, listen? No.
Listen, I'm suffering on behalf of a friend, and I've got their parents. So,
Yeah. I can't believe the most exciting thing I've just picked up on there is the free parking at the Conquest, because it's extortionate, actually, by the way.
Yeah, they always are.
But, living in a country where we only have private healthcare here, which is amazing. Like I say, I could literally go to a specialist this afternoon if I wanted. But obviously we pay a lot of money for it, or most of the time it's paid for by your company, but I'm self-employed, blah, blah, blah. Jim, I don't really know how to wrap this podcast up.
It's been a pleasure. Life is worth living. What a great excuse to chat to you and to talk about myself. 2 wonderful, wonderful things I really enjoy.
What a great excuse. Yeah, I mean, it has been. And it is one of those things whereby, I mean, gosh, I would have seen you maybe once a year, if ever I went back to the UK and there was some kind of, with Bab and Chappers and everybody. And I mean, Bab's got like 47 kids now and is married. Like, he's actually an adult, all of these people I've grown up with inadvertently through Chris. So no, it has been really nice to talk to you. I'm sure you've heard this so many times. It's like, I wish it was under much better circumstances.
Yeah, of course. But that's why you own cancer. And you say, right then, cancer, you think you're playing me a bad card. I'm going to turn it into a good one.
Yeah. And you get to talk to me, you lucky, lucky bugger.
Living the dream, mate.
Listen, thank you so much. Please give my love to Danielle, of whom I've never met, would you believe?
Did you? I tell you what, you bumped into her at a train station once.
I did meet her at a train station.
I was like, that's Noisy Katie, Sarah's friend.
That was when you just started dating, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's how long it's been, mate. Yeah.
My God, yeah, I did. Was it Warrior Square, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah, one of them. Somewhere a bit rough around the edges.
Yeah, a bit rough, right? I mean, I don't normally go to Warrior Square. Obviously, I don't frequent those kind of places. Give my love to Danielle. I've seen so much of Ted through Sarah, and obviously, the girls is mad. The last time I saw the girls, they were probably like 5, 6, 7, like that kind of age. I'm just sending you loads of love, man, and like all of the strength in the world. And yeah, fuck cancer. Let's just let's put an explicit warning on my podcast for the first time ever. And just get out of it what you can. Life. #life.
#life. No, it's been a pleasure. Thanks, Kate. Thanks for sharing my story. Very kind.